Welcome back to the cryptoworld channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and right now, both Bitcoin and Ethereum are running into critical support as this break to the downside continues. And on top of that, right now, we are seeing a rare signal flash for both Bitcoin and Ethereum, which I'll talk about later in the video, so definitely watch to the end. First of all, starting off on the 4-day Bitcoin chart, and right now, as of recording this video, this large bearish divergence is still currently playing out on the 4-day time frame, as I've been talking about over and over again recently on the channel. So once again, what this means is that just in the short term here, we should not be expecting any significant bullish momentum, and instead, we're likely going to see either some choppy sideways price action, if not a pullback in the price of Bitcoin. But as I've also been saying on this channel since the beginning of this year, technically we are within a much larger bullish trend here on the larger time frames, because we're still seeing things like higher lows and higher highs here on the 4-day time frame and the weekly time frame, for example. And on top of that, if you're looking at this super trend indicator on the 4-day chart, as of right now, this is still sitting in the green, indicating a larger bullish trend, which once again, I've been saying that since around 17 to 18,000. But as always, there is a point of invalidation for a bullish trend, and that point of invalidation, according to the super trend indicator, would be a confirmed break back below around $25,000 with candle closes back below that level, at least 4-day candle closes, but ideally some weekly candle closes back below 25k in order to signal a trend reversal on the larger time frames, because if that happens, the super trend indicator would flip from green back to red. And on top of that, obviously, if the price of Bitcoin confirms a break below 25k, that would confirm a new lower low on these larger time frames, which as of right now has not yet happened. But if that happens once again, that would be a sign of a trend reversal on the larger time frames. So at least for now, on the 4-day Bitcoin chart, not much has changed over the last 1 day. Once again, as I've been saying almost every day over the last 1 month, we're still looking bearish in the short term. But as I've been saying since the beginning of this year, we're still technically looking very bullish on the much longer term, in the longer term trend. But anyway, now taking a look at the daily Bitcoin chart, and once again, this bearish divergence is still technically active on the chart, which means we should not be expecting any significant bullish momentum in the short term, and instead we're likely going to see either some choppy sideways price action, if not a pullback in the price of Bitcoin. And clearly we have definitely seen a large pullback over the last 1 day in the price of Bitcoin. And now if you're taking a look at the daily Bitcoin price oscillators, first of all, looking at the daily Bitcoin MACD, as of right now, this is starting to show more bearish momentum. As I mentioned in my last video, more and more bearish momentum is beginning to show up here. And combined with the fact that we once again have an active bearish divergence on the chart, we're simply looking more bearish than bullish here in the short term, as I've been saying recently on the channel. But with that being said, I must admit, over the last few days, even though I was expecting some more short-term bearish price action, with that being said, I was not necessarily expecting a move of this size. But with that being said, if you were expecting more bearish price action in the shorter term, as I was over the last few days, whether or not we saw some slight bearish price action or a lot of bearish price action, either way, if you positioned yourself for bearish price action, like for example, being in a short position or taking profits on Bitcoin hoping to buy lower, if anything, this has turned out better than expected if you were positioned for bearish price action. And now if you're taking a look at the daily Bitcoin RSI, once again, we technically still have a bearish divergence active, but also if you're looking at the daily RSI, this is extremely oversold right now. And in fact, this is the most oversold we have seen Bitcoin on the daily time frame in over a year. If you're looking at the daily Bitcoin RSI, once again, right now we are seeing Bitcoin more oversold than at the bottom of the FTX collapse at the end of the 2022 bear market. So as I just said, on the daily time frame and also on the 2-day time frame, this is the most oversold we have seen Bitcoin in over a year. So what that actually means is essentially the price of Bitcoin has gone too far to the downside too quickly, and we potentially need some time to cool off from this bearish price action, because essentially the daily RSI and the RSI on multiple other time frames right now need time to reset back to the upside, back out of those over oversold territories. And the way to reset the RSI from oversold territories is to see either some sideways price action, if not a slight bullish relief. And so if you're looking at some of these previous examples where we saw the daily Bitcoin RSI enter into oversold territories, first of all, at the end of the 2022 bear market at the FTX collapse, obviously in the following days and weeks, in fact, over the next 1 to 2 months, we saw a lot of sideways price action just chopping around sideways. But then if you're looking at the next example that we saw back during March this year, obviously over the next few days, we actually saw a pretty quick recovery in the price of Bitcoin back to the upside after reaching those oversold territories. And now it's worth mentioning that this example that we saw back in March, even though it is possible we could see a quick recovery back to the upside, I must admit that is not a likely scenario, because even though we saw it back in March, if you look back throughout Bitcoin's history, this is not a common outcome from oversold territories. We don't commonly see a very quick V-shaped recovery. So what I would be expecting as the most likely scenario on the daily time frame moving forward is basically for the price of Bitcoin to bounce around 25k to 27k for at least the next few days. Because also on the daily time frame, we have this important area of support, which was previous resistance sitting in between around 24.3k to 25.3k. And over the last one day, we have seen a perfect bounce from this level of support at around 25.3k. If you're looking at the Bitcoin to US dollar index right here, but on some other exchanges during this dump, obviously there were discrepancies. So on some exchanges, you would see the price of Bitcoin actually made it lower than this previous low, whereas other exchanges, we did not go that low. And so this chart right here basically looks at the overall Bitcoin price across multiple exchanges, and we can see that we have not yet broken below this previous low. We have actually seen a perfect bounce from this area of support. And in fact, if you're looking at the Bitcoin order books across multiple exchanges, right now there's quite a lot of buy orders set at around 25.8k and even more buy orders at around 25k. So those are the price levels where we should be expecting some support. But as for resistance, we do have a lot of sell orders in the order books going all the way up towards around 27,000. In fact, a lot of sell orders are placed in between around 26.7k to 26.9k, so just underneath 27k. So what that means is that we should expect a decent amount of resistance just underneath 27,000, right around where those sell orders are placed at. So as I just said earlier, I do expect the price of Bitcoin to potentially bounce around in between around 25k to 27k for at least the next few days as the most likely outcome. And now if you're taking a look at the 8-hour Bitcoin chart, taking a look at that Fibonacci retracement tool, obviously over the last one day, we have seen a clean break below the 50% retracement level of support and the important golden pocket area of support on the 8-hour time frame. And right now the price of Bitcoin is running into the 78.6% Fibonacci level, which is sitting at around 26.1k, acting as short-term support. But if we end up seeing a confirmed break below 26.1k on the 8-hour chart, then in that case, we would likely drop down towards around 25k, because once again, that is where we have some major support in between around 24.3k to 25.3k. And as for the trend and momentum, once again, in the shorter term, on the slightly smaller time frames here, I'm still leaning more bearish than bullish in the short term, as I've been saying for a while now on this channel, thanks to this bearish divergence. But until we actually confirm a strong break below 25k with a weekly candle close below 25k, I am still currently leaning bullish here on the much larger time frames, once again, since the beginning of this year. But anyway, now getting into the Ethereum part of this video, this is on the daily ETH to US dollar chart. And obviously over the last one day, we have seen a clean break below this important area of support, sitting in between around 1770 to 1820. And as I mentioned in my last video on the channel, if we see a confirmed break below 1770, then I would expect a drop down towards this next area of support in between 1650 to 1.7k. And right now, as of recording this video, the price of ETH is currently finding perfect support at that price range. So at least for now, once again, we do have that support at 1650 to 1.7k. But if we end up seeing a confirmed break below 1650, then looking at the Fibonacci retracement tool from the November 2022 bottom up to this swing high, the next important support thought to pay attention to below 1650 would be this 50% retracement level sitting at just above 1.5k, more specifically around 1510 to 1520. And in a more bearish scenario, if we actually saw a confirmed break below 1.5k, then in that case, the next important area of support is the golden pocket sitting in between around 1360 to 1390, close to 1.4k. And obviously that's right where the price of ETH also bottomed out during that March dump, so we do have some confluence around that area. But just taking another look at that daily time frame, looking at the daily Ethereum price oscillators, first of all, the daily Ethereum MACD is finally beginning to show more bearish momentum. As I mentioned in my last video, this is starting to show more bearish momentum. But with that being said, as I mentioned just earlier in the video and in my last video, I was not actually expecting a move of this size to the downside. I was expecting some bearish price action, but not necessarily this much. And that was simply based on the MACD yesterday not showing as much momentum compared to some of these previous moves. So I said in my last video, I would not be expecting like a 20% move to the downside, for example, but instead, obviously, we saw around a 10 to 15% move to the downside. But as I also explained earlier in the video, if you were positioned for bearish price action either way, because once again, I was expecting some bearish price action, if anything, this turned out to be better than expected if you were positioned for bearish price action. And now, if you're taking a look at the daily Ethereum RSI, right now, just like Bitcoin, this is currently extremely oversold. In fact, this is the most oversold we have seen ETH on the daily time frame in over a year. In fact, if you're looking at the last time where the daily Ethereum RSI was this oversold, we would have to go all the way back to June 2022 when the price of ETH crashed from around 1.8k all the way down to below $1,000, which took the daily Ethereum RSI down to a low of around 19 to 20 on the RSI. And right now, as of recording this video, the daily Ethereum RSI is currently sitting at around 20 to 21. So very close to that major bottom that we saw back in June 2022. And if you're looking at some of the other times where the daily Ethereum RSI was oversold, we also saw that happen during the end of the FTX collapse right at that November 2022 bottom. And we also saw the daily Ethereum RSI briefly skim across oversold territories back during the June dump. But even during the March dump that we saw earlier this year, we didn't even see the daily Ethereum RSI get into oversold territories at all, even though it did get very close. So that just goes to show how extremely oversold the RSI is right now, which once again means we need some time to cool off from all of this bearish price action because the price has essentially gone too far to the downside too quickly, and we need to reset this RSI. And the only way to reset the RSI from oversold territories is to see either some choppy sideways price action, if not a slight bullish relief. And if you simply look at all of these other examples, once again, where the RSI was oversold on the daily time frame, that's pretty much what we saw. Either some choppy sideways price action, if not a bullish relief over the coming days or weeks. And now, once again, as I said earlier, for Bitcoin, I would not actually expect a massive V-shaped recovery after a dump like this, simply because that's not really a common outcome, even though it is possible, like what we saw during March. It just doesn't happen too often. And so instead, I would actually expect the price of ETH to basically remain range bound for the next few days, possibly over the next 1 week or so, basically to stabilize after this massive bearish move and to help reset the RSI as one of the most common outcomes when the RSI is extremely oversold. And now, if you want to know how to maximize your profits in crypto, no matter if the price is going to the upside, to the downside, or simply chopping around sideways, then make sure to watch these videos popping up right here on your screen. The video in the top left shows you how to make money if the price is bullish or bearish using AI, and the video in the bottom left shows you how you can easily profit from choppy sideways price action. But anyway, that's everything that I have to say for today. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.